If I gave all of you in the audience right now a choice to get up from your seat and go sit in a completely different section of this auditorium, next to someone you've never seen before, how would you feel? Confused? Scared? Maybe even a little excited? Some of us would have entered the auditorium today, and our eyes would have instantly scanned the room to seek out familiar people, so that we can sit next to someone we know, in an area of the auditorium where we feel at ease, in an area where we feel comfortable. And that's exactly what the basis of today's talk is about, that comfort zone. Now, we've all heard of the term comfort zone. It's our metaphorical safe space. It's an invisible barrier that stops us from reaching our full potential and limits us to what we're familiar with. So you're probably wondering why I've chosen to talk about this. In order to understand that, you have to know a little bit more about me. My name is Ananya Nair, and for all my life, I have been labeled as the quietest person in every room that I've been in. My journey with comfort zones started basically since I was born. Being an introvert, I constantly compared myself to the people around me who were very extroverted and charismatic, something I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone who was so sure of herself, someone who would grab opportunities with both hands, but my fear of facing the unfamiliar stopped me from doing so every single time. But introverted or not, I'm sure all of us here have our own individual struggles with things that lie outside our comfort zones. This could be fears we're too scared to face, dreams we don't think we'll be able to accomplish, problems we choose not to address. It's only natural to experience these feelings of fear and doubt, but it's also important to know that there's a very fine line between protecting yourself from perceived harm and staying rooted in a place you feel comfortable in. The first is an empowered boundary. The second is not. Because staying in these zones also means staying stuck. And so the big question arises, how do we get out of this rut? The most obvious and well-known answer would be to step out of your comfort zone. But what if I told you that your desire to break out of your comfort zone is actually what's keeping you stuck inside of it? When people talk about stepping out of your comfort zone, it sounds like taking a simple step out of this protective space you've created for yourself, which realistically is not possible. Let me explain. The reason why it's so difficult for us to feel as though we've accomplished the act of getting out of our comfort zone is because there's no way to actually break out of one. There are only different experiences that help us stretch these zones and make us more open to new possibilities. What this means is we can't truly break out of a comfort zone, only expand it. And that's the concept I want to introduce to you today. The idea behind my understanding of comfort zones acts not as a barrier which should be crossed, but a limit which should be expanded. For the longest time, I was fighting this internal battle with myself, trying to expand my comfort zone and become the fun and extroverted person I wanted to be. And so the journey began. I was consistently getting out of some comfort zones, but then staying stuck in other ones. Yes, I could strike up a conversation with a stranger, but I could never talk in front of a group of people. And when I could talk in front of a group, I could never go on stage and speak. And when I could go up on stage, I could never speak loud enough. It was an endless cycle of I could nevers. But as I challenged myself with these new experiences, I never took a moment to look back and acknowledge the fact that I was constantly expanding my comfort zone. Humans are visual creatures after all, so an easy way to conceptualize this idea of expansion is to think of your comfort zone like a rubber band. Just like a rubber band, comfort zones are elastic. If you try hard enough, you can stretch the band a pretty long way. You just need to get rid of the fear that it might snap. This fear stops the band from reaching its full potential, just as the fear of moving out of a comfort zone does. Think of something you're comfortable with doing now that you never thought you would have been able to do before. At first, it would have felt like you were stretching that rubber band to its limits, but it stretched and adapted to the new space you were exploring. The same goes for your comfort zones. When you confront your fears and push those boundaries, you start to grow, rebuild yourself, and become more resilient. So it's not that we can't expand our comfort zones, because realistically, we've been doing so our entire lives. We just choose not to. We underestimate how far we can actually stretch our comfort zones. So now that we know we have the capability for expansion, that leads us to the question, how do we consciously make the effort to do so? The process of expanding your comfort zone requires two seemingly different things that go hand in hand: consistency and restraint. In order to feel that satisfaction, to look back and realize that you've mastered the act of controlling your comfort zones, you need to expand them over and over again. A key concept here is consistency. The only way we can get used to facing the unknown is by exposing ourselves to it as much as possible. And the more we do this, the more we condition our minds to accept the idea of change. Throughout our lives, we are going to face comfort zone after comfort zone to the point where it can sometimes get exhausting. And that's okay. That's where restraint comes into play. No matter how motivated or passionate you are, there's going to be a point in time where you will not be able to expand your comfort zone. Because just like our old friend the rubber band, our mind's natural tendency is to get back to that original state of rest without any tension. We will often face some internal resistance, and it's important to give ourselves that compassion to do so. So start with small stretches. Your rubber band will become more flexible the more you expand it. This could be ordering something new at a restaurant, talking in public, and even sitting next to someone you don't really know. It's all about stretching your comfort zone a little further each time until you look back and realize that you've expanded it further than you ever thought you could have. The biggest opportunities for growth and the most profound life lessons lie just beyond our self-made limitations. Once we take charge of our lives and dare to push the boundaries of our self-made limitations, we realize what we are truly capable of. And it is at this moment we stop becoming spectators, but active participants in our own lives. Ladies and gentlemen, before I leave the stage, I would like to leave you with one last thing. While doing my research on comfort zones, I came across a quote that some of you may be familiar with. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. But why do we need to wait until we've stepped out of our comfort zones to start living? Life begins whenever you decide it to. Thank you.